Hello, hello, good morning. I'm coming on a couple of minutes early because I want to see if this whole sound setup is actually working using our different configuration here. Coming on. Yes, that sounds good. Excellent. Well, so that was easy, I guess. We'll just take a couple of minutes to see if anybody wants to actually join and be live. For today's practice. So I've done quite a few live things on the Little Yoga Space page and also inside this private group with all of my Thai massage and yoga students. I've kind of been neglecting my Hadadi Facebook page a little bit, and I thought, actually it'd be quite nice to share here as well a little bit. So this will be always 30 minutes and it'll be some form of practice most of the time. So it might be that we get on the mat or that we do some breathing or a meditation or something. And yeah, I think it's just especially during times, we all get fed up with all of this online stuff. And at the same time, it's also still a really nice way to at least connect somehow with each other. So here we go. That's what we're going to do. I'm going to take my socks off as it's nearing 11 o'clock and we're going to get to the back today. We're going to do a 30-minute back release sequence. This is probably, what I do the most as and when I get on my mat. I am probably known for having a good roll around and practicing a lot of undoing. And then from this undoing, as I come onto my mat, this, kind of relatively spontaneous, easy movement arises and just sort of ended up in this little routine. It's not like I do it exactly the same way every single time, but there's a few components that I would probably do each time. So somehow this sequence has quite organically and naturally developed. So one of my favorites, and I'll share that this morning. So let's get on the mat. And first, the invitation is to actually roll around a little bit, and that's freestyle. So I really love picking my legs and arms up, but that might not be you. So whatever might feel quite good, and I'm just having a little rock and a little twisty, stretchy thing, waving my arms and legs and actually just saying hello. And also it's a really nice way to massage my back a little bit and connect here with my mat and with the ground as I'm literally almost sort of nuzzling myself into the ground. None of this has to be symmetrical at all. You actually just give the lead to the body, and the body can for a moment move any which way it wants. And this looks different every day. It's a little check-in. And eventually we can gather this in a little bit and come into our center. And I really like crossing my ankles over. That gives me some support here for the legs. And as I bring my knees into the chest, one hand very soft on each knee. And I'm letting my knees just fall out to the sides as they want. So this little cross of the feet, there's this touch from the feet, this hook from where the legs can rest back. And my shoulders can relax here, my elbows are just heavy. It's almost just like the weight of the elbows that supports the legs in place here. So everything is just hanging off in some way, and we're becoming a little quieter here. And this is a nice opportunity to take our first few deeper breaths. I always say like freestyle breath. So that means out through the nose or out through the mouth or in through the mouth, in through the nose. It doesn't really matter, as you wish. The only stipulation is that you take a slightly deeper breath than normal, a more conscious breath. But apart from that, you decide what that looks like. One advantage of doing these things online in the privacy of your own home is that you can even make a sound if you so wish. It's not embarrassing. Because a sigh can sometimes feel really good. And then I allow the feet to uncross, and we take one foot very slowly and gently down, just one foot to the floor. And when that foot lands, there is a release in that hip, and I just let that side of the pelvis fall away to the foot. There's a nice letting go here and an opening of that hip that was all squashed up a moment ago. And then I slowly release the other leg, place that foot down on the ground. And again, when that lands, there is a resting to the feet. The pelvis is falling away to the feet. That's allowing my lumbar curve to come in. Actually, that's kind of pulling me down a little bit, and there's a little pull on my shoulders. So I release one shoulder and bring it down the back. And I release the other shoulder and bring that down the back. And maybe even release the head. So I'm making myself actually a little bit shorter. I'm kind of coming a bit closer towards my pelvis, and that allows my lumbar curve to be fully expressed here. Maybe that feels a little awkward for some of us to begin with, but actually what we're doing is we're giving the spine a little bit more, or less pull on the spine on the inside. So in a moment, the spine is going to settle on the inside. And we take a few moments here to undo, and that involves literally not doing anything at all. So a little note on the placement of the feet, maybe. Everybody has their own kind of habits here. I try to take care of two things. One is that my feet are actually relatively wide apart, and that gives some stability to the legs. So if I was to fall asleep, I don't want to have the feeling that the legs just went kind of out to the sides. You can check what that feels like by placing the feet really close together and then pretend you fall asleep and the legs would just flop out. So I just take my feet quite wide to begin with, maybe even with the heels turning out a fraction. And then the other thing I try and do is to have my feet not overly close towards my sit bone so that there is some tension here, but close enough so that if I was to stand on a slippery surface, I don't have the feeling that my feet would just sort of slide away, which would be the case if I had placed them quite far away from me. So the feet are somewhere below the knees, and that means the legs can rest. So let's take 2 or 3 more of those deeper feel-good breaths. And with every exhalation, there is a little bit more dropping into the ground. And with that feeling of dropping, we want to drop our shoulders. I'm just literally trying to drop the shoulders down and float my arms up with that towards the ceiling. So continuously, I try to really work with gravity. And so in this case, I want to let the bones of the arms really drop back into my shoulder sockets, and actually even beyond, like I sort of stick my arms down into the ground, into soft earth. But at the same time, there's a little bit of buoyancy coming out through the fingertips. So there's kind of 2 directions going on, down on the inside through the bones, and then up sort of more on the outside on the skin level, reaching towards the ceiling. And that gives me a little bit more of a sense of my arms being part of the shoulder girdle and kind of connected to the spine. And then I want to make sure I don't lose that kind of sense of my arms being connected as I slowly, very slowly in slow motion, bring my arms back over my head to the floor behind me. And it might be that they kind of don't really want to go all the way. That's absolutely fine. In that case, you just begin to take your arms a little bit further out to the side. Sometimes you just need to pause for a moment almost like reintegrate the arms down towards the spine and then carry on going. But if your arms want to come out to the sides or really round, more into a V shape, into a U shape, that's perfectly fine. Or maybe even out to the sides altogether, like a cactus or a kind of a cross. That's also good. And once the arms come down, we're actually going to all relax them anyway. So my hands are now down and I relax and round my elbows a little bit so that my lower arms can actually come to rest here. And then we go down to the pelvis and start to tilt the pelvis. Gentle and soft tilting movement. I'm taking the pelvis away, arching the lower back a little bit more, and then drawing the pelvis up towards the face and the lower back drops into the ground. You might find, because your arms are over your head behind you, the movement feels a little bit restricted. That's all fine. That's kind of part of the here. You'll notice in a moment, we're going to keep going here for a little while, how that's going to change. And for this movement, I think it works really nicely to use the breath to support the movement here. So if that works for you, go ahead and use the breath, inhaling to send the pelvis arching the lower back. And on the exhale, we draw the pelvis up towards the face and the lower back drops into the ground. So you find yourself taking slightly deeper breaths here, but see if you can find your own rhythm. That might be a little bit faster, a little slower, as I was just saying. Following your own pace. And see how the breath can serve your movement here. And we begin to explore the edges a little bit more. How far does the pelvis tilt both ways? And so by now you might already notice how the movement has opened up a little bit. Maybe it has a little bit more ease. And we observe how the movement is traveling up the spine. And maybe your head wants to be kind of tilting along with this movement. And so you let the head be moved along with the tilting of the pelvis. So this movement is beginning to travel right through the whole of the spine here. And we're going to do a handful more or so. Exactly the same thing, same breathing pattern, same movement. Only that as we inhale, we're going to exaggerate a little bit and take a super deep, puffy breath into the chest, a little bit more higher up. Really go for it. And then releasing the breath from the chest as we tilt the pelvis. So do maybe 4 more of those. Really big, puffy breaths. Exaggerate really over the top here for a moment. Let's do 1 more. And then let the pelvis find its own neutral position, wherever that might be. Just letting it settle here for a moment. And then we switch to focus on the top end of the spine, dropping the shoulders to float the arms. And then we interlock the fingers and lift the head up just for a moment to cup the hands behind the head. So the head is now resting in my hands. So for this one, I'm going to need a really strong grip. So fingers are going to have to work a little bit. So make sure you're really interlocking those fingers quite well. And we're going to bring the elbows up towards the ceiling and relax the shoulders away from the ears there. Have a lot of space between the shoulders and the ears. Size of an orange could easily fit in there. And then we're going to use very strong hands to lift up that heavy head So see if you can lift that up, not so much with your abdominals. Of course, they're going to just help a little bit, but the focus is on lifting the head up with your very strong hands. And then once you're up and you're looking down between your legs, see if you can really try to relax the belly a little bit more. Relax the pelvis, the pelvic floor. Relax the shoulders, relax the neck muscles, allow a bit more space between the collarbones, between the shoulder blades. You could maybe even sort of walk a little bit yourself onto the edges of the shoulder blades to prop yourself up there. That will support you here a little bit. See a bit more through your structure. And then we try to really, really, really relax the neck muscles here. So for me, it's quite difficult because I'm talking right now, so I do want to shut up for a moment. And letting the head be really, really, really heavy in those hands. The hands have got to work. Hands and arms are strong. I'm just taking a few deep breaths here. Heavy, heavy, heavy head. The heavier you can let your head be, the more you're going to feel this going all the way down your spine. And in slow, slow, slow motion, we're going to place the head back down. It's almost like you want to roll down your neck vertebrae, like coming down from bridge pose. Slowly, slowly, slowly releasing. Very heavy head back on the ground. And then as that comes down, we release the head. And if it was comfortable enough for you to have your arms over your head behind you, place them back there. Otherwise, feel free to just take them down to the side as well. That's absolutely fine. Let's take a breath here and allow that to become a bit quieter again. We go back down to the other side. We're going down to the hips, and I'm going to create a little bit of movement here. I'm picking up one leg and just circling that leg around a little bit to go, okay, hip, have a little bit of movement here, free up, release, easy circular movement. And then I'm going to make this a little bit more conscious. So I'm drawing the leg in to come across my body, like literally towards the opposite shoulder. And then really consciously turning the leg out from the hip. Then we're going to add here, sending the leg away. So the heel of the foot is taking the lead here and sending the leg away somewhere into the diagonal into space. And then we scoop the leg back in. Big toe is dragging the knee across. The little toe is turning the leg out. And then the heel of the foot is sending the leg away. Big toe taking the lead, coming in, little toe to turn the leg out. And the heel of the foot is sending the foot away. Let's do a couple more big circles here. And then this time we come in and out, but then I send the leg up towards the ceiling. And let's see, it's a little bit like what we did with the arms. I want to let the bones of the leg really drop right down into the hip socket and down into the ground. So for a moment here, really want to make sure I relax that pelvis, relax the tension. And I'm touching here to demonstrate, but actually you could even do that if you find that here your muscles have gone and worked a little bit hard, then you can massage them. And then I'm activating my foot a little bit again. So I've got a kind of big toe and I've got a little toe and I've got a heel. And they are almost like they want to suck themselves up towards the ceiling. Like my foot is like a big suction thing, drawing up towards the ceiling. And at the same time, the bones of the leg, the thigh bone in particular, is coming down into the hip socket. And then from here, I bend my knee and take the big toe to lead and see if I can find the ground with the big toe, just the tip of the big toe. And that means I'm actually sort of turning the leg in a little bit to really make sure that big toe is the one that's in front. And when that eventually finds the floor, I go and rest the weight of the leg and the hip into that big toe. So it's the very tip of the big toe on the floor. And I'm resting fully into that, which actually has lifted that side of the pelvis slightly off the mat. And it feels really light and floaty here. And then very gradually and consciously, I replace the toes to the floor. So I bend the toes and bring all of the toes down. Heel stays up. Just the ball of the foot comes down. And with that, there is a slow release happening across the back of the pelvis on that side. I'm letting the sacroiliac joint release on that side, and very slowly letting the side of the pelvis that come up melt back down to the floor to level up. The heel is still off the mat. And then once that's settled, I allow the heel to very, very slowly melt, a bit like a knife through butter, back to the floor. It's like I release the heel from the back of the knee. The knee wants to actually stay up in space almost. So slowly, slowly letting the heel bone come and rest. And once that's down, there's a real sense of resting down through that foot. And we take a moment here. What does that feel like, that relationship from that foot to the hip? Might be a little different to what it was before. Even if the foot has sort of ended up in a slightly odd place, that's all good, not to worry. And we do the same on the other side. So I pick up my other leg, in this case my left leg. And I begin with just some easy circles, nothing technical about that. By the way, if you really feel like you want to take your arms down to the side again, then that's absolutely fine. And then we're going to make this a little bit more of a conscious movement. So big toe is bringing the leg across to the opposite shoulder. The little toe is turning the leg out to the side. And then the heel of the foot is sending the leg away somewhere into the distance. Big toe, little toe, and the heel. Let's do a few rounds of that. Big movement here through the hip joint. Last one. And then actually with the same sort of swooping motion, we don't go out to the side, but we go up to the ceiling. And then we can take a moment to consciously release this leg. That can involve giving that a little bit of a massage, trying to really drop the pelvis. And then activate the foot again, big toe, little toe, and the heel of the foot, this kind of little triangular shape, trying to draw up towards the ceiling. So it's a bit like the sole of the foot wants to suck itself up towards the ceiling. Letting the bones of the leg drop down into the hip socket at the same time. Taking a breath here. And then to come down, we bend the knee and point the foot away a little bit. So I'm really like reaching out through the big toe, going for a little search for the ground. And that means my leg is also turning in a little bit so that the big toe is really out in front. And then when that comes to find the mat, it goes, oh, the whole leg and the side of the pelvis just rests into the very tip of the toe. So the big toe itself needs to be a little bit strong here for a moment. That's okay. But the side of the pelvis has come up and is all light. And then gradually, like almost one toe at a time, you begin to bend the toes and place all of the toes down to the floor, coming to rest through the ball of the foot. The heel stays up. And with that, we can then slowly let the side of the pelvis melt back to the floor, really gently. And then once you feel like you've kind of gone a bit more squared up again, then we can very slowly and gradually release the heel bone. It's like you want to release the heel from the back of the knee. Slowly, slowly, slowly. And when that's back down on the floor, there's a sense of really resting through the feet. Observe that kind of sense of the feet on the ground, that connection, the relationship. If your feet have really gone into completely asymmetrical, funny places, then feel free, without disturbing your body too much, but feel free to just adjust the position of the feet a fraction, so that's fine. And then we really deepen the imprint of the feet and press down through the feet, sending the knees forwards in space towards the center of the foot, and allow the body to come up into a baby bridge pose here. So really an easy lift. Don't go too high. In fact, like the point where it starts to be work, we stop. So really a baby bridge here. And we just take a deep breath here. And then on the next breath, on the exhalation, we allow the spine to release back down to the ground. See if you can observe a little bit if the spine is happy to roll down, or whether there is kind of little chunks of the spine that come all down at the same time. It's quite often the case. We hold a little bit of tension and then all the way releasing the pelvis back down, coming back to our lumbar curve here. And then we're going to do things, and it's not that typically yoga. I'm going to start a good shimmy here. So my pelvis is actually staying on the ground. I'm not lifting it up, but I'm having a really good side to side, side to side, side to side, literally shaking my bum. Go, 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 go. Really shaking, good shimmy. Pelvis is going side to side, side to side to side. And then I'm going to take that in the rib cage as well. And it's going through the whole of the spine. If you leave your head quite, go ahead, but maybe the head is just going on as well. So I think of Blue the bear, a really good scratch tree trunk, and enjoying that. Go, 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 side to side, side to side, side. Keep going. Really getting some movement here into the spine, side to side, side to side, side to side. And then we pause, we push down through the feet, fly up into bridge pose, just go, don't think about it. And observe how high you can go now without any effort and what that feels like. Taking a breath. And with every exhalation, so we really take our time, only on the exhale with the emptying of the belly, we release 1 or 2 vertebrae back down to the floor, and then we pause, we inhale. And on the exhale, 1 or 2 more vertebrae, and the belly just relaxes, there's no tension, there's no tacking on and in and under. Just an emptying of the belly, a release. And with that, we release 1 or 2 more vertebrae down each time. So this is going to take, I don't know, maybe 8 breaths or so. Take your time. Until eventually the sacrum comes down and you release the tailbone away, returning to your lumbar curve. And if your arms are still up and over your head behind you, then it's probably time to bring them down. So very, very slowly dropping down through the shoulders to float the arms up. Release here, soften for a moment. And then we just let the elbows drop down to the ground. And then you can lay the lower arms down where they want to go. And observe a little bit the difference here for a moment. Allow everything to become a little quieter again. And taking maybe a couple of those freestyle deeper breaths here to let everything integrate. And I usually like to also do a little bit of a twist, or do a really sort of simple, non-technical thing here. I'm just beginning to sway my legs a little bit from side to side. And the way I'm doing that is really coming from my feet, kind of rocking from the inner to the outer edge of the foot. So it's really just a movement at ease. There's no pull, no stretch, no pushing the legs anywhere. And maybe the movement is getting a little bit bigger each time. So this is really not meant to do much at all other than helping to integrate, helping the body to settle here, which I quite like to do with a twist. And then eventually from here, let the body decide which way it wants to turn. So you can use the movement here and then just turn onto your side and make sure you just go to your comfortable side, and when you're there, you even make yourself comfortable so you can stay for a handful of breaths here. Allowing the fluids to settle. We've spent, like half an hour on our back, so it's nice to give the body a moment to realize, there's a change now, a change of direction with regards to gravity. And then there's this point, you'll feel it in your own body where the body goes, okay, so yeah, I'll be ready to slowly come back up into the vertical axis, so we can place the top hand in front of us on the floor and push ourselves up with that. Gently, the top leg can go away a little bit to help us out. And slowly coming back up, and I would suggest to come either to cross-legged, or if you know that cross-legged just has a funny pull somewhere on your back, and kneeling is available to you, then I really also love coming to kneeling here for a moment. So just simply pulls less on the back as a check-in moment. How does that feel in the back right now? So a quiet moment, returning to our vertical axis and checking in. How does that feel in the back? What I quite enjoy doing also, just as a way of sort of integrating and coming round again, is to maybe complete this with a downward facing dog. I'm not going to be technical about that, so make it your favorite version of downward facing dog. So whatever you really enjoy the most, in the way that you enjoy it the most, come into a downward facing dog. And that doesn't need to look like anything in particular. Take your time and see if whatever the feeling might be right now in your back body, that you don't drop it. So maybe we go into our downward facing dog a little bit more delicately, so that we don't lose what we've just created in the back. And that might also mean that we really keep our knees a little bit more bent, or whatever it might require to not lose what we've just created in the back. Whatever it feels like, assuming it's a good feeling. We can slowly come back and release here. So I invite you to maybe come and rest in child pose for a moment if you like, or what I also enjoy is doing this in preparation to a sitting practice. So I will probably, once I turn off the camera now, do like my 20-minute meditation, just sit for a moment. Up to you, or maybe you're busy and need to go about your day, then do that. That's also fine. Thank you for watching and for joining. Also, those of you who might be watching this in replay, it stays on this page, so you can get back to this anytime you like. If you enjoyed it and you want to have this kind of voice guiding you through the practice, you can find this video here on this page for however long this page is going to exist. Enjoy your day, have a really good start to the week, and hopefully I'll see you again next week. Take care. Bye for now.